Welcome to This is Wealth. On this podcast, we ask, what is wealth? What does wealthy really mean to you? Most of us immediately think of money, but honestly, wealth is so much more than that. If you have health, deep friendships, a supportive family, you have great wealth. My name is Liz Crawford. Get ready to be impacted. Join me for a conversation with Terry Kyle as we demystify fundraising. Terry Kyle has spent most of his career in the nonprofit industry with an expertise in raising large amounts of money to support the missions of nonprofits. It takes a special person to spend a career asking for money, but it isn't as hard as you may think. Terry is an accomplished veteran in the industry. In this conversation, he will share why nonprofits need to fundraise and remove the fear of fundraising for those of us who serve on boards. Terry, thank you for being here today.
It's good to be here with you, Liz. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Share a little bit about yourself and your background with our audience, just so they get a feel for who you are and how you got to this point in your career.
Happy to. I actually came to Texas to go to law school at Baylor. I had an English degree, and a liberal arts degree is great until you go to look for work. And so pairing it with a law degree was really a good way for me to take that next step. And I never thought I wanted to practice law. I always thought it was something that I could do. Mm-hmm. And I wound up practicing for about 7 years, but did not enjoy it. I had nonprofit work in prior background. And so when I had the chance to go back to the nonprofit world, I jumped at it.
And what made you go back to nonprofit? What was it that drew you in?
I think it's a passion. Being able to see something that I'm a part of funding, I'm a part of helping to grow, really is a satisfying part of the job. And it also, the practice of law, often if you're in one area, there's a lot of repetitiveness and opportunity. And in the nonprofit world, sometimes I wish it would be more repetitive, but it changes constantly. Well,
and you jumped into, you first said fundraising. I think that's the part of the nonprofit world so many people fear, that it can be really hard to do or it gives you anxiety. So I really want to demystify the idea of fundraising, because I think there are wonderful people who would like to contribute, but that fear of fundraising and, oh my gosh, what's my role in this? How is that going to be? Do I have to ask everybody for money? I think that kind of keeps them from taking some steps that everybody would benefit from if they were involved. So let me just start with 3 simple questions. Okay. In your mind, what does it mean to serve on a nonprofit board?
I think the first thing that means is that you find a board that you have passion about the mission that they are providing. And then we often talk about the time, talent, and treasure.
Yes.
Being able to commit time to serving on the board, because it's not necessarily one meeting a quarter, because there are other things that board members can do to help. And the talent aspect really is, from the standpoint, it varies depending on the person and their life experience, but bringing that life experience to a board. And often in the Children's Hospital Foundation, our primary goal is fundraising. Some other nonprofits have other missions, and the boards have not only the fundraising aspect, but a lot of oversight and management. And so we often need people who have financial background, attorneys, accountants, others that can provide their expertise in a way that helps the nonprofit do the things they need to in a really good way.
Right. What type of roles or responsibilities are the nonprofits looking for from a board member? How do you kind of know if you're a good match?
Well, you would, in talking with the staff, I think the first thing is to know, yes, this is a mission I can get behind, and this is something that really is satisfying to me. Thinking of it as a job or building a resume is not really going to be helpful. If you see it as, this is me being able to make a difference, then you're probably in the right spot. And then one thing is ask questions about the board, ask questions about the finances and about what specifically that board is needing in their board members or prospective board members, because if they have, 15 bankers, that can be great for one area, but they may need it to be diversified from that standpoint, from life experience, ages of the board members. So ask the questions about what they're looking for and see if you're the right fit. And then as we talk about fundraising, because I think that's what we're doing mostly today,
yes,
it's not a matter of every board member going out and asking their friends for money. It's more, there are a lot of opportunities for board members to do things that don't put them in the room for the ask, but set the board or set the organization up to have a relationship to where someone can make an ask of the people.
Perfect. You answered my question.
Okay.
Do I have to ask for money? That's perfect. No,
okay.
But I think there are ways to be supportive and helpful without having to be the one to make the ask for money.
Absolutely. One, for example, at the hospital, inviting colleagues or friends for a tour, and basically on the tours, I just get them to the location, and then the nurses and the doctors are the ones who really, with their passion for what they do, they tell the story, but we could not have that person in the room if their friend or their peer did not say, come see what I'm serving, where I'm serving, and what we're doing at the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. What does it mean to be a nonprofit organization? I mean, there's for-profit and non-for-profit.
Okay. The biggest difference is that a for-profit has shareholders or has owners, that the profits from those organizations or from those businesses go to the shareholders or to the proprietor for the organization. Where a nonprofit, there's not ownership with individuals, but the board governs it. And then any revenue or profits that come back in actually go back in to enhance the mission. There are nonprofits that are set up. There are religious organizations, health, education, the arts, social services, including animal nonprofits. And so it's a wide variety of organizations, and often they're able to step in because the government, it's not going to be able to do everything. And so having a nonprofit come in to help do things and to be there for the community is a great model for us.
Right. And not all nonprofits are profitable. So the gap is the fundraising.
Absolutely. And there are, some nonprofits like a hospital have revenue and from, insurance and Medicare. Often it doesn't cover the cost of doing things. And so that's where philanthropy comes in for us. But other nonprofits, if you look at homeless services and some other social services that don't have a revenue fund, they're much more dependent on every dollar.
Right.
But what we're doing is taking the dollars that the community gives and increasing the benefit and increasing the quality of care and the opportunities in the hospital.
Right. Okay, we've touched a bit on the why do we need to fundraise. It's to make up the gap between what revenue comes in and what things really cost, because they cost a lot, and those continue to go up year over year. Let's talk a little bit about how you fundraise. Okay. And you have deep experience with different organizations in helping them develop and implement fundraising strategies. There's a lot we could go into there, but I'd like to stay focused on the individual's role in the process. And that individual's role is part of an overall larger plan.
Yes.
So how does an organization come up with their overall fundraising plan or strategy? I mean, how do they decide how much money do they need? What's the long-term goal? How much do I need to raise this year? What's the thought process behind all of that?
The first step is really to have the information from the program side of the organization. And so where the funds are being spent, we need those individuals to be involved in the conversation because they're the experts on, healthcare or education or child care or whatever the issue that the nonprofit's covering. And they're the ones who really need to set the strategy for what is needed. And then the next step is to have the nonprofit working with the board, talking about we need, $15 million or we need, $25 million or it's maybe $3 million. And how can we raise those funds? You look at your existing donor base, you look at your opportunities to build it out, and then you look at the strengths of the board and of the staff and of other volunteers. And you may have some board members who are great connectors, who are very enthusiastic, and they may have a big following, in social media or in other areas. They may be absolutely terrified of asking for money. And so we're not going to run a great board member off because they don't want to sit down across the table and say, Liz, will you give X? Right. But there's opportunities for them to bring in, we can have fundraising opportunities, and that could be as simple as having a coffee in your home and being able to invite friends and have someone from the nonprofit come in and talk about what's the impact that it's making. Tours are often so much stronger, and sometimes we will do group tours so that no one feels like, well, you're singling out my friend. And so we'll have, 3 board members bring, a couple friends, and then it's a lot more comfortable for the board member to get used to doing things like that. And then we have others who are, gung-ho about fundraising. And we had I had one board member who did not want to fundraise, and but he was really happy to make the connection. And so he had a friend that came in, and we had a tour, and we had lunch. And so later, before we ever, talked about what follow-up was later, this friend called him and said, I want to come talk to you about what you need, and we don't need any staff there. And so he
slid right into home position right there.
He was reluctant in that, but when he got a major gift, and that was the first one of his nonprofit volunteering, I have seen him fundraising for other organizations, and he's got the bug, and he's really enjoyed it. So that's always fun.
Well, it's hard to not enjoy it because you know that you're supporting this mission that's so important, that's providing critical care to whatever segment of the population, and that without those services, your population would not have the ability to navigate that. And so, whether it's animal care or children or social services, that you're making an immediate difference. And that's powerful. It feels really good.
Yeah. And we as professionals, I'm not going to ask someone who has no interest in healthcare to help with what we do. Right. But we will, work with them, see if they have an interest and see if it's the right fit. And so if we as the professionals do our job, no board member is going to be in a situation where they ask or we ask their friend and they're not. Right. They have no interest whatsoever. But the way a lot of times I describe it is we're matching people with opportunities to do more and do greater things in the community. And if you think about it in those terms, it's really helping bring joy to the donor, because generosity is a great vehicle for finding happiness.
Yes, and it offsets entitlement. I mean, there are really wonderful things around gratitude and generosity. You talked a little bit about matching the skill set, the person. I imagine there's a learning curve. If this is your first time on a board, you're probably going to watch more. You're going to learn as you go. But if you're a more seasoned person, then you understand what the role looks like in terms of fundraising. But at the same time, we just talked about for your board, everybody who comes on that board has a role in fundraising.
Yes.
But everybody's responsibility is not necessarily the same.
That's exactly right. We have a board that's very diverse in age and life experience, and so we have some board members who have friends who can make a 7-figure gift, and they often are very comfortable doing that because chances are their friend has asked them for a similar gift for a cause that's important to them. We have younger board members, and I think there's no age requirement to serving on board, and we have some younger board members who have started a program where they have engaged young families giving $1,000, and then they each year select one of the programs from the hospital to benefit from their fundraising. And so that's a step for them in building it. Often board members may be more comfortable with asking someone if they would like to get a table for an event, or if they and their family would like to sign up for a 5K. And so a lot of people can get their start in a way that's an easier, fun way for people to get engaged. But realistically, we have some board members who they open doors. They say, sometimes it's, will you meet with Terry? Or sometimes it's, let me bring Terry over to see you and talk, and they'll sit there. And they endorse by being present, and they endorse by being on the board. And they would never want to ask their friend for a gift, but they don't mind setting it up. Sometimes they don't mind being in the room. Sometimes they'd rather not be in the room for the ask. And we're not going to put someone in a situation that they are not comfortable doing.
What's been your biggest surprise when asking for money?
I think the biggest surprise there have been probably half a dozen gifts in my career where we asked for a certain dollar amount, and there was one example where I was scheduling a visit with a lady, and we were going to ask for $1 million gift, and she short-circuited that and just called me and said, Terry, what do you need? And I said, well, let's sit down and visit about it, because this would be their largest gift to the organization. And she said, no, just tell me what you need and what's going to be used for. And I said, well, we'd love to have $1 million, and we're going to use it for X, Y, and Z. And she laughed and said, I'm not going to give you $1 million. She said, I'm going to give you $2 million. Wow. And so when you ask for less and the generosity, and I can tell you that she was as excited at the announcement of the gift as anyone around, and because she was able to have that joy of generosity.
I love that. Let's talk about that a minute. There's a level of donor stewardship. So making an announcement, I mean, those are big gifts, and obviously there's a lot of light shined on them. But what about smaller gifts? How do you appreciate your donors that have been with you?
Most organizations should, if they do not have it, they should develop a stewardship plan that really makes sure that you don't let people fall through the gaps. And so we have a donor wall that recognizes gifts of different sizes, and annual giving as well as a lifetime cumulative giving. That's an opportunity for us to showcase in the hospital what people are doing and thank them in that public way. And sometimes it's I've taken donors through, and they've stopped and they started naming off friends that they saw on the wall, and so that can be a nice thing. Yeah, it's a nice thing for us, but we want to make sure that people are thanked and thanked personally. And so if someone gives a gift of any size, we'll have someone call and thank them. Unfortunately, we get a lot of voicemail, but we still leave the message and thank them. One of our younger staff members who does a number of calls for annual gifts, and she will joke or laugh about, she'll be ending the call of just saying thank you and, telling a story about the hospital, and they'll say, okay, tell me what you want. And so there's always, I think some nonprofits have very few, but there are some nonprofits that skip the stewardship part,
right.
And they think, okay, they were really happy to make this gift. Let's ask them for another. And we need to have their gift invested and be able to go back to them and say, here's what you helped us do. And so for the donor who gives $100, it's more in a newsletter or annual report of here are some of the things the foundation has been able to fund and support. If it's a gift that's restricted for a program and is larger, being able to introduce them to the doctor or the nurse leadership and they are phenomenal. And I'm sure, teachers and professors and other, musicians who, the people doing the work of the nonprofit are very willing and capable of extending gratitude to those donors.
They're your best brand ambassadors.
Absolutely.
They live it daily. They really do come alive. What are some of the different tactics or strategies you've used with board members in helping meet them where they're comfortable in raising money? So we talked a little bit about you might bring a friend, you might go on a tour with them, you might be in the room for some of those biggers. Let me change the question a little bit, and how do you help somebody progress down the line to where they're comfortable, and maybe there's a spot where they're like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to progress anymore. I don't want to make the ask. But how do you help people think about?
If they really have a fear about introducing the organization to their friends, we would include them on another tour where one of their board colleagues is bringing friends, and they see the process and they get used to it. And it's not dissimilar to when they would have come on a tour when they were joining the board. I think the conversation before people decide to join about here's the job description we have for board members, and here are the ways that you can fulfill this is a good conversation starter before they join the board. And then we have orientation that gives a little bit more background, because the reality is, if as a new board member, if you ask a friend for $10,000 for this program, and they would say, well, what's it going to be used for? And there's got to be some education pieces that the board member is able to speak to, the growth of the program, or that this program is one that doesn't make a profit, and so it needs to be funded by philanthropy. And so those are things that the education, the meeting the doctors, learning from those. And so all of our board meetings, we have some type of education, typically with a doctor sharing what is going on, and then keeping that information going.
Keeps it current, right?
Yes.
Good little nuggets of information in there. It goes back to the strategic plan too.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So what are we trying to achieve here?
So I think I appreciate you coming back to that.
Yeah.
So you get the foundation within, or the fundraising department, the development department would then get involved after the program folks said what they need, and then you'd look at the historical fundraising that you've been able to do. Typically is a good indicator that you shouldn't be limited by that, but you should know that at least we should be able to raise this amount. And then at times, so in this meeting, having the board members buy in, they understand the need, they understand why there's a need, and our CEO for the hospital does a great job in sharing with the board the successes and the opportunities that we have. And so that's a great thing for board members to understand, that we're not just raising money to reach a goal, but we're raising money to change lives. And then getting the expertise. We talked about bringing your talent, and so having the people who really are experts in various areas around the table, our endowment fund board is an example of that, of people like you who are in the investment industry or operating their family offices and doing different things, bringing that expertise. And I'm always amazed by the conversation. I've learned a lot through the course, and I probably have learned that I don't know nearly enough. But having those type of folks who are willing to give their time and their knowledge, and then we develop a plan, and sometimes it may be an annual plan. Sometimes it may be like the capital campaign that we're currently getting ready to wrap up, to where we have it was a 5-year plan. And so getting the board members and other community volunteers on a campaign cabinet would help us with doing that. But from the standpoint of the board members as a whole, making sure everyone's invested to where they make their personal commitment to it, and then they do the things from a linkage and from a connection standpoint.
So the board member found the mission that it tied to them in some way. And then if you're going through strategic planning and you're looking ahead, likely there's something in that strategic plan that they're going to feel passionate about. Maybe it's the overall vision, but maybe it's a component of it. The board member may appeal to them, and they may think, oh, I've got a family member or a friend or someone that this ties directly to, which is why it's important to me. And then that gives an avenue of, okay, here's my cluster of people that I can tell this story to. And you do a little warming up on the way so that it's not just, hey, come see the tour, but you're talking about the great things that are going on. And I agree that your peers that are involved as well are part of the selling of your organization's story, because it attracts wonderful people to it, and they've been committed to it. And your organization in particular, you have a long history of board members. They serve for a long time.
And the board members, many of them are the resources for knowing what came before and how things were done. And so while we don't want to stay in the past, we also want to repeat the successes, but also avoid the things that weren't necessarily a success. So, but finding that passion, I think one of the, university probably is one of the areas where people, someone may love the athletics, someone else may love the arts or the business school or what, and you can talk to them all day long about the mathematics department, and they're not going to care in the least. So you go to, from a board member, you focus them on what brings them passion if there's one specific thing. And then they may have friends that have other passions that they can make their introduction to. But it's all about just thinking outside the box. At times, we will take a list of people that we wish we knew and sit down with a board member and say, are any, do you know any of these folks or any of them? And the more times than not, there will be one person.
A connection.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you just start fundraising.
Yes, because I can call them, but I don't have that relationship. But the board member who's their neighbor or whose kids are in the same school is in a position where they respect them and are able to connect. Yeah,
and I think that's another thing for board members to be aware of if you're starting out in this is there's no cold call. It's, you need to warm them up with the organization, what's happening, how it's made a difference, why it's important. Then that tour comes along. Then, it goes on from there. And at any point, the intended donor opts out, they opt out. Maybe it's not a good time. Another interesting point. So what's it like to fundraise in different economic environments? I mean, the hard part is an 2008, a 2020, a 2022, you probably need the funds the most.
It's been, having been in the nonprofit world most of my career, I've seen the, times when people are concerned about the economy, and we always are thinking, okay, this may not be the right year for us, but An example is in 20 with COVID and the people not really knowing how their business was going to do and other things. We actually had one of our best years, and that I think that is because some of the people who had the wealth to be able to help said, if they ever needed the money, they need it now.
Right.
And so that really helped us, and we had other foundations and others who've reached out during that time and said, we've got a pledge payment, but we can postpone that and then give an unrestricted gift for this year that can be used for
however you need it.
Yes. And so I think the passion of the donor and the ability of the donor to understand the situation is key. And as far as talking about warming up, relationships, if we do our job right with new board members, they're not going to be able to not talk about what's going on at the hospital.
Right.
And so the fact that they hear about the epilepsy surgery and the impact, and the young man who's now a freshman at A&M who could not control seizures, and having those stories that they put in their back pocket, they're not going to be able to have dinner with friends without saying, you won't believe what is happening.
Yeah.
So
there are so many amazing stories that have come out of the hospital for sure. But there's a reason everybody does the work they do. And so if you can, to your point, pull those stories out, they're very catchy, and people love that help was there and that it really changed someone's life. And again, I think you have to get back to what you said. You're changing someone's life.
Absolutely.
That's hard to say no to.
And I think we have champions who are former patients who have been through programs, and their family wants to give back in a way. And they may not have the connections, and they may not have the resources to do a lot of things, but they have their story and their passion. And we have a event this year, Cow Parade, and at the kickoff, a mom talked about the impact. Her daughter had a rare form of cancer, and just the impact and the way she was treated, and the quality of the care. And so being able to use those stories and have those people who want to tell their story, that's their way of expressing their gratitude.
Yes. Yeah. I have a cousin in Tennessee who has been in that boat, and one of their little boys had a life-saving surgery, and they tell the story whenever they can, wherever they can, help the hospital, however they can.
That's great.
It's neat. Yeah. What advice do you have for someone who's considering joining a board? How do you help them think about the fundraising aspect of things?
Well, think about the time commitment, because it's not without
it is a commitment.
Boards need people to invest their time. And then what they really need to do is, don't look at just where your friends may be serving, or where, are the board that is the end board to be on, but think about the overall mission at the end of it, because that's what's going to drive your passion. And so if you are into performing arts, then you can, there are a number of nonprofits that need great board members. And so look in that area, because your passion may not be fulfilled by doing animal services or when arts are your main focus. And then be willing to be bold and to reach out to the staff or to a board member that you may know to ask the questions, because sometimes they may not be on the radar for the organization, and having them be able to see the programs up close and personal makes a big difference.
Yes. I love that you said be bold. I have a friend who has been in the foundation business for a long time, and she's been very bold in what she's done. But she's always said, why are people timid in their giving when it's in the foundation? You already know that you're having to give it away. you know that you can grow it over long term and give more away, but you have the opportunity to be really bold and be transformational. And many people are still very conservative in how they look at giving.
Yes.
And the impact that we could make if we were bold could be mind-blowing.
Absolutely.
Really
and
positive.
And that comes from having the passion and having the skill set and having those stories and being able to share that, and then having some success. And because if they take their friend and they're just amazed by the nonprofit, and then their friends are sharing about their tour, that's pretty good confirmation that it was the right thing.
Right.
So.
My last question is something that I ask everybody, and it's, what is wealth to you? How do you define it?
That really is a hard question to sum up in just a sentence. But I think I've talked a lot about passion and about energy, and I think being able to find a passion and invest yourself in it, and be able to be true to who you are, and have the joy that comes from living in your passion. And as I talked about the cow parade, I've seen the artists, and they are so thrilled to be giving their art back, to the hospital. And they and some are full-time artists, and some are not. But that's where they found their passion. I can't write my name where someone can read it, so I know I'm not going to be a painter or an artist. And I music is not my strength, but I found my passion with being able to be a small part of a bigger mission and helping in that way. And it can be, your passion can be your job. Your passion can be something you do outside of work, that your work enables you to do that. It may be your family, but finding that passion and investing yourself in it is going to bring wealth.
I think if you're able to look back and see the impact you had and the impact it had on you as well, that just, again, builds part of the wealth of how you feel about it all.
I think at the end of our lives, if we look back and say, I was able to make a difference, I was able to provide, my kids are now in great positions, and they're able to take care of their kids and their community and all. If people can look at those things and see it as a life well lived, it's not, the financial resources help do that. And obviously in my work, people's willing to give of their financial resources is great, but it gets back to just find the passion and throw yourself into it.
Couldn't agree more. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate it.
Well, there are so many great conversations that come from discovering the true wealth in your life. And I feel that when you see wealth for more than money, you will have true clarity in what matters to you. And that clarity will help you in every decision you make. Thank you for spending time with us. I look forward to the next time you'll join us. And remember, wealth is a lot more than money.